Hello, hello. Strange the Dreamer is a 2017 fantasy novel, the first part of a duology, the Strange the Dreamer duology by Laini Taylor. It's set in fantasy in a fantasy world where Laszlo Strange, war orphan assistant librarian, uh, is at the very lowest of the rungs, but he has this dream and obsession of the city of Weep, what's considered this mythical city of Weep, where he's learned everything about it, and indeed his knowledge does get used without crediting him by the Golden Boy, appropriately with the last name of Nero, to to affect some alchemy and stuff like that. But then what happens? But the very people of Weep show up, and are looking for experts to bring back because they have a great shadow hangs over the city of Weep, great things that are still tormenting them and that they need help with. And through machinations, Laszlo gets drawn into this city, which, has we learn in the novel, has been held captive, been under the sway of these blue-skinned gods. And It is one of these things where you find out that gods are doing one of the things that gods are quite famous for in their thing, and it's, I guess, warnings about a lot of talk, at least, about rape and things like that that do come up in this book. So yes, Laszlo Strange is the orphan of uncertain origin that we follow through this book. He is the first voice we hear from. The second voice is Suri, one of these blue skinned offspring from the union of these gods and human beings. And there's been a lot of offspring, but they are she and her sisters, who are high up above the city of Weep, are the only survivors of a great massacre that happened. So this is the first part of the duology, and I think a part of what this review is me talking out the reasons why I'm probably not going to continue on with the thing with this story. I think, to start off with that, full disclosure, I'm not a giant fan of big chunky books. I don't know why I keep on picking them up. This one is 544 pages. The second part of the duology, which was published in 2018, Muse of Nightmares, is about the same length. So we're getting into a 1,000-page story here. And I always go into these things really hoping for the best. That it's like I'm going to be, wow, so excited from the first book that I'll want to go to the second book. And I'm not. I'm just not. I'm just not. And a part of that is the pacing. I think my tastes run to a much leaner kind of driving plots, or at least, if you're not going to have the lean driving plot, you're going to have characters that are going to so enmesh me and so enthrall me that I will forgive you. In the end, I did not find that this book had that for me. I felt like the pacing was, we're doing epic fantasy, kind of draggy along pacing. We could tell this story. We could tell the story in at least half the length, and I don't think it would suffer at all. Laszlo is, I felt, especially at the beginning of the book, Laszlo felt like a bit of reader pandering. He is a poor, put upon assistant librarian who loves his books, loves stories, believes in the stories. It's just like, oh, you're just trying to pander. You're just trying to pander to me, book. And I reject that. We've got, and he's got his antagonist at this point in Nero, this golden boy. And it's just like, yeah, Nero is horribly selfish. And yes, we find out some of the reasons why he is horribly selfish and horribly driven, but, still, it's not enough of an opposition there that, I care enough about Laszlo. Suri and her sisters are a little bit more interesting. There's an oddly kind of really hypersexual nature to a lot of the girls. I mean, I guess a part of it is just being all trapped alone with there's only one other male with them. But it is, they are, I think they're sort of like 15, 16, and maybe it's because I'm an old 50-year-old fart. Why am I reading this book? You're probably wondering, and myself wondering. It's just like, yeah, hearing about teenage girls and exactly kind of hypersexuality that way was a little bit squicky for me. Versus maybe if I was a teenager, it'd be a bit more. I could be into it unproblematically. That ways, teens have their sexuality. I've heard. Um, but yeah, so there's that. Actually, in among the girls, other than Suri, is Minya, who can control ghosts, who is one scary motherfucker. She is the standout character, standout, I guess, villain of the piece. And she has her motivations, she has her backstory trauma. I mean, everyone's got to have their backstory trauma in books like this. You you can't just allude to stuff like that. It's got to be balanced out, I guess, to give a full writer workshop kind of fleshed out character. I think she is really effectively done. She is really scary. She's maybe so effectively scary that this is where I'll come into like problems with the end of the first part of this book. Um, the other thing that I think is the fatal flaw of this book is that it turns into a love story. And it's one of those love stories where I wasn't convinced. I was not convinced about the love story, which basically means that the sort of second half of this book is pretty much falls flat for me. I think the writing is doing all it can to try and elevate it up, but in the end, I did not buy into it. I did not. It didn't get me. I was not swept off my feet as all young, fair, 50-year-old ancient dudes are I expect to be swept off their feet. In the end, especially the end of the story, which I will talk about in these, is the general things possible. I was very cut and dry. It's like, nope, kill her, walk away. Kill her and walk away. That's the end of it. I would not have gone on. If I was Laszlo Strange, it's like, nope, because my Laszlo Strange is not particularly, yeah, I wouldn't have been an issue. Wouldn't have been an issue. I'd feel bad about it, but it's like I didn't buy the end of the story, which makes me think that I don't want to go on. I don't want to go on with the story. It is one of these interesting stories where like ghosts are used in these stories. Minya's powers have to do with summoning and controlling ghosts of dead people. And I had a very kind of interesting reaction of like, that's not that person anymore. That person's dead. That's not that person anymore. It reminds me of people talking about vampires, about like the vampires are not romantic figures. They're dead people. They're unnatural. They're just wrong. They're wrong. The whole kind of making them dreamy, making a vampire a dreamy heartthrob, and I'm not talking about Twilight here. Actually, is sort of fundamentally wrong. And actually, though, it's funny. I feel that way. I can be totally dreamy heartthrob about vampires. For some reason, ghosts, nope, they're dead. I don't care about them anymore. Which means I should excuse myself from reading Muse of Nightmares, the follow-up to this, which is, yes, as I said, is equally as long, and I'm sure I would just get more and more as I went along, grumpy old man, as I went along in that. So that said, these books are extremely popular. The writing is really good. You might get swept up in the romance. If you do, cheers on you. But yeah, just I'm definitely a minority opinion on this book, judging from the gushing words I've heard talked about it. But yeah, everything isn't for everybody. But I figured I should talk this out for myself. It's like, okay, because this is how I end up doing my thinking. Is I have to do it out loud. So I do my thinking out loud here, and I go, okay, I can put that aside. I haven't tried any other of Laini Taylor's novels. Maybe I would take a look at them and see if maybe there's something else I would try. Or maybe this is just, big thumpers, a little too on the young part of young adult for me. That's that, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. There's plenty of other stuff to read, isn't there? All right, more videos later.